Hi, welcome to Bruce C. TV. I'm your host, Bruce C. And it's been a while since we've been in front of the camera. One of our previous videos, though, if you remember, was actually one of my most treasured stories about fate and my search for a wedding band. We did it out for Valentine's Day, but it was a search for a wedding band for my beloved bride, Jenny. Today's story precedes that one. The event that prompted today's story was the recent passing of one of my favorite singer-songwriters. John Prine's music was instrumental, pardon the pun, don't pardon the pun, in bringing Jenny and I together. And it all started way back when, as they say. I was working for a furniture manufacturing company. I was a rep, and I wasn't very happy with the position. There was some turmoil in ownership, and so I was looking and had a headhunter reach out and ended up setting up an interview with me at a retail company called Artist Frame Service. It was up in Lincoln Park, and they were looking to hire people to do some corporate art sales. They had a big framing company that did all this fancy frames. It was pretty high end. It was owned, operated, and created by a very dynamic businessman who turned out to be one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. He's just an awesome guy, even though he fired me a year later, but that's another story for another time. So I got this job interview, and I show up for the interview, and I go into this old renovated warehouse that was this really cool facility where they did the framing. And standing by waiting to interview with the owner, I'm checking out the place, and they had all these really cool frames on the wall, and it was a huge place. And then they had these tables in the middle, standing tables, where people would bring their artwork, and then the framers would be there to help them lay it all out and measure it all out and decide what they wanted, matting and whatnot, and then ring them all up. And it was really, like I said, it was a very hip and happening place filled with hip and happening young people. And I remember standing there as I'm studying this place. This young lady passes by, and at first, she was just another worker. But I remember when she glanced back and caught my eye, I felt that gut rush that you get. I kind of felt, I always call it my special vibe. Like there was a sense of attraction that we shared, and I got that vibe, and I thought, oh gosh, kind of cool, but kind of worrisome too. I was, at the time I was 42. I'd already been divorced. I had no plans on ever being involved with anybody ever again, especially somebody younger than me. So anyhow, I get the job, and they put us in, I was in the corporate art sales team, there's only 4 of us. They put us in the building next door, and it was right around Christmas time. So I remember that the owner asked us all to come to work on a Saturday. He said, I need you guys to come to work on Saturday. I want you to see what this place is all about, get a feel for our culture. Work at the retail store. He gives away free bottles of wine to his customers. He sends out a little card to everybody, come and get a free bottle of wine. They show up, they buy some stuff, and hand them a bottle of wine when they walk out the door. It was really cool. The other thing he offered was free gift wrapping. So the place was really so I showed up that Saturday to work that Saturday, and I found myself in a large conference room where I had actually interviewed, standing in front of a huge beautiful wooden conference table. And I was with like 10, 20-something hip and happening, young, beautiful Lincoln Park, ladies. And I was the only guy there. And it was really kind of cool. It was kind of crazy. We were wrapping gifts for people. And of course, standing opposite me was Jenny. It was almost like, she was taunting me in a way, because she was right there, and I just put it out of my mind, because like I said, I didn't want to get involved with anybody. In fact, while we were framing and working that day, and like I said, it was a fun day, it was a crazy day. And we were all in there goofing around, and they were playing music outside, but we had music inside. And I remember a song came on that was more to my generation, that came out of my era, and everybody sang it. Everybody knew every word, and I didn't say a word. And finally, one of the girls looked at me and said, "Oh, don't you like that song?" And I said, "Actually, I hated it the first time it came out." And they're like, "Well, what do you mean the first time it came out?" I go, "Well," I told them how old I was, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't know that." And I said, "Well, how old is everybody here?" And then they were rattling off 24s and 25s, 26, 27, 26, 25. And Jenny said, "I'm 27." And I thought, well, I kind of had this, I mean, if I was going to go out with anybody, I had this cutoff mind in my head at 30. And when she said 27, I thought, oh, that's kind of close. But I really, like I said, didn't want to get involved. So, the course of our day, having fun. I had mentioned that it was the Saturday before Christmas, and I had mentioned that I needed to do some Christmas shopping. And I asked for some suggestions, and people kind of railed a few things off. So I remember the end of the day, you know, we just had a lot of fun. And the end of the day, I went out, I was getting ready to leave, and I remember I had left my coat in the conference room. So I walk in the conference room, and standing by the coat rack all by herself, the only person in the room is Jenny. And I walked up to the coat rack, I grabbed my coat, and she looked at me and said, so are we going shopping or what? And I said, let's go. Well, I had it in my mind, kind of decided in my mind that this really wasn't a date. So we hit a couple of different stores, and I just kind of kept that out of my mind. But we hit a couple stores, and at one point I said, you know what, it's kind of stupid. We should at least get a bite, you know, go somewhere for food. So she said, yeah, you know, I got an idea. Why don't we go to Whole Foods? And let's pick out a bunch of stuff and grab a wine or beer or whatever we want. And we'll go back to my place and just, you know, get to know each other. And I thought, all right, that's pretty cool. So the first sign that things were kind of progressing in a positive way is when we were at Whole Foods, we started picking out the same stuff. We went to the deli counter, and she said, oh, I love that orzo salad. And I go, oh, I love it too, but you know what would go good with that? And she'd be like, oh yeah, olive hot tapenade. I go, yeah, well, let's get that. And then, I mean, we even picked out the same beer. I mean, it was crazy. So we get everything, we go back to our place, and she had, I don't know, second floor walk-up apartment. And you go up the stairs, and there's a landing. Then you go up another short flight of stairs, and there's a landing in her door. Only one on that floor. And so we go in, we sit down, and I remember, you know, we ate and we had our beer, and I remember kind of in my mind, like, I just felt like I had to tell her my life story. My wife back then was, I'd say shy. She was very quiet. And I remember her just sitting there and listening to me for probably 2 or 3 hours, maybe longer. And I gave her every bit, from the beginning to my health issues, my heart problem. I told her everything, the whole story. And as I started getting toward the end of this story, I remember thinking to myself that I got to start backing up here, right? I got to backpedal here. I don't want to have a relationship with anybody, especially her age. I just didn't think I could take the pain of breaking up. I just wasn't in the mood to have to deal with another situation like that, because it was inevitable. It just seemed that I wasn't in a very good space for a relationship. But I remember her sitting there listening to me the whole time and not saying a word. And I don't know whether she knew that I was trying to talk her out of having a relationship with me or not, but that was the goal. And finally, I came right out and said to her, I said, you know, you really don't want to have a relationship with me for a lot of reasons. You know, one is the age, and I remember she saying, she listened intently, but I remember saying to her, for example, we don't have that much in common. Even though, by the way, I found out that I drove a red Volkswagen manual shift 5-speed Jetta. She drove a black manual shift 5-speed Jetta in the city. Who does that? Nobody. Even though we, like I said, at Whole Foods, we had all this stuff in common. I had convinced myself in my mind that we didn't have things in common. So I tried to persuade her, and I told her, I said, for example, if I was to be stranded on a deserted island for the rest of my life with unlimited supply of food and water, all the nutrients I needed, but only one source of music, I would pick one entertainer that you do not and have never heard of. And she cocked her head and she looked at me and she said, try me. And I said, I would want to be on that island with every song that John Prine ever made. She gave me this weird little look. And I remember she went like this, 1 minute. She got up And she came back, and between her hands was a stack of CDs. Every CD John Prine had ever made. I was shocked. I was like stunned. And I told her, I said, wow, I probably should have said my favorite bluegrass player. And she said, well, who's that? And I said, well, Doc Watson. And she said, I can still see the look on her face. She said to me, I had a dog named Doc Watson. Oh, I freaked out. I totally freaked out. I got up right away. I said, I got to get out of here. And I went to the door, and I opened the door, and she followed me to the door. And I went down the landing, and I stopped at the landing, and I looked up, and she had the door open, and she was looking at me out the door, and she looked so beautiful. And I was so attracted to her, but I was so scared. And I remember I ran up, I gave her a peck on the cheek, and I said, I really got to go. And when I went downstairs, I got in my car, and later on I found out that she went inside, turned around, went inside, shut the door, went inside, called up her best friend, and said, I just met my husband. Now, I will tell you, one of the things I learned since then was that even though I'm 14 years older than her, I like to tell people, she's 14 years more mature. So it worked out pretty well. And that's how John Prine brought us together. Let's enjoy a song or two, shall we? To be continued.
You may live alone and close your eyes. Some folks do. You may dream a dream that's twice your size all night through. When the morning comes, who's to tell your dreams to only you? Only love, love only love will do. Only love, love only love comes true. Nothing else, you see, there's nothing else. Only love, only love. I have known a love within my heart, one or two, where one love would end and one would start. I never knew if love should come your way, you'll learn to say, I love you, I love you. Only love, love only love will do. Only love, love only love comes true. Nothing else, you see, there's nothing else. Only